Welcome to the Alabama Nature Center. It's a wonderful place to come and visit for a field trip or an explore on a day on your own, or even for parties or summer camp or spring break camp. But when you come out and explore, what you can find at the Alabama Nature Center is that we talk about all the treasures that Alabama has to offer in its many, many different habitats. Today we're going to talk about the Longleaf Pine Forest, which used to encompass most of the southeastern coastline and a little bit further up into the state, all over the south. Today the habitat is shrinking a little by little by little, and 80% of the habitat is held by private landowners, which is a good thing because we can still do things to help the plants and animals that live there survive as they're adapted to do. Let's start off with the longleaf pine. This tree, the dominant tree of the area, starts off with this tiny itty bitty little seed, and it falls from its cone and hits the ground, and it starts growing. Now, lots of trees can live where the longleaf pine does, but what makes it different is that this tree can survive fire, and fire is a necessary part of its environment. It starts off from the ground, October, November, growing, and looks like a little sprig of grass. And as it grows, it will start to grow into this grass stage little tree. And it can live in this little tree. You might be thinking a year or 2 years, but it can actually live in this stage for 4 to 7 years of its life. And it's not just growing on top of the ground during that time, it's growing underneath the ground as well. So that first predominant period of growth for this tree establishes a long taproot and a very intricate root system that can get into the ground and give the tree its nutrient and water levels that it needs. As it grows that root system, it's growing in diameter a little bit at a time until it gets to be about an inch all the way around. These needles will bristle out around it. But if there's a fire that comes through an area during that time, these needles will singe off around the edges, but here's what they're protecting. They're protecting the place in the very center where the pine tree grows. And so if there's a fire runs through the area, burns all the edges, guess what? The growing part of the tree is still protected. And then after it reaches that diameter, it starts to grow, and it grows really fast. It'll grow a foot to 3 foot a year, up higher and higher, until it reaches high enough to get the sunshine and wide enough that it can support tree branches, and then it'll start growing out. Now they call that the bottle brush stage of the pine tree, and that's exactly what it looks like. And as they grow taller and taller, the bark on the edge of the tree gets thicker and thicker. So in this grass stage and the adult stage of the tree, if a fire comes through, this thick bark on the outside of the tree kind of helps to protect the tree itself from being burned by fire. There's another plant that grows in this area too, and that is this blue stem grass. The blue stem grasses grow in an open space where sunshine is allowed to reach, along with other forms. So those are some of the plants that you'll find in this ecosystem or habitat. But now let's talk about some of the animals that have adapted along with them.
All right, so here at the Alabama Nature Center, we have a lot of different education animals, and the one I'm going to show you today is Big Mama, and Big Mama is a gopher tortoise. Now, this is a very distinctive animal that's found in the longleaf ecosystem, and she thrives in the sandy soils and open habitats. The sandy soils allow her to dig deep burrows that can be up to 10 feet under the ground and up to 30 feet long. Here at the Nature Center, we have her an artificial burrow that she can go hide in because she can't really dig her own. As you can see, she's missing part of her foot. She is a rescue gopher tortoise that we think she was injured somehow, and so we are allowed to keep her here at the Nature Center because she can't be released into the wild. We have special permission to keep her here because gopher tortoises are actually on the endangered species list. They're considered a threatened species, which means they're not quite endangered, but they're definitely not safe from extinction either. So the gopher tortoise is a really important species to the longleaf ecosystem. They love to dig into sandy soils. They eat lots of the different plants that grow in the open habitat. I have some different plants that they like to eat. So they like lots of green things. They're herbivores, meaning they're plant eaters. And they'll eat chickweed, and greenbrier and wood sorrel and other veggies like that. They'll even eat cactuses called prickly pear cactus and dandelion leaves and things like that. She might not be hungry right now, but we'll see if she wants to eat anything green. But one of the reasons why these animals are so important is because they make homes for other animals. These burrows that they create, they'll make several over the course of their lifespan, and they can live a long time. So these burrows, as they grow, they'll keep making more burrows, and scientists have looked in these burrows and they have found that up to 350 different animals use these burrows as homes. So that it can include insects, it can include birds, mammals, other reptiles, amphibians. And some of these animals can only be found in a gopher tortoise burrow. So without these animals digging these burrows, none of these animals would have homes. And they use these burrows to escape the fire that comes across the landscape, but also to escape the heat of a summer day. They use it to raise their young, to hide from predators. And so these burrows are a very important part of the ecosystem. Because of this, the gopher tortoise is called a keystone species. A keystone species means that even though there's not a whole lot of gopher tortoises in the ecosystem, they do something that makes a big impact on the ecosystem. They change it, and without it, the whole ecosystem would crumble. So I'm going to show you one of the other animals that live in this ecosystem that depend on the gopher tortoise burrow. It's another one of our education animals. And his name is Indy, and Indy is an eastern indigo snake. And he's actually also a protected species. He's considered threatened as well, just like Big Mama. And these snakes can be found in gopher tortoise burrows. They go there to escape fire. They go there to spend the winter. They go there to escape the heat of the summer day. And they like to live in this habitat, and they're only found where gopher tortoises are found as well. So when gopher tortoises were declining in their population because of habitat loss, the eastern indigo snake started to decline as well. Now, the eastern indigo snake is called that because in the sunlight, they have a beautiful bluish purple sheen to their scales. It's kind of hard to tell right now, that coloration, but Indy does have quite the beautiful scales in the sun. This is actually North America's longest species of snake, and Indy can get up to 9 feet long. Right now he's only about 6 feet, but there have been indigo snakes that can get 9 feet long. They are known as the Lord of the Forest, so their scientific name actually means that. And the reason for that is they actually eat other snakes as well. So they can even eat venomous snakes. They're immune to other snakes' venom. And so even though Indy here is not a venomous snake, if a rattlesnake or a copperhead bit him, they wouldn't hurt him. But they actually have a special adaptation. He has really strong jaws compared to other snakes, so he actually can defend himself by crushing the head of another snake. So he actually prefers other snakes. And that's what he'll do in the wild, is go hunting other snakes. But you'll often find these in gopher tortoise burrows, along with all the other animals that can be found in gopher tortoise burrows, either by themselves in empty ones, or sometimes right alongside the gopher tortoise. The gopher tortoise doesn't mind sharing its home. So these are some cool animals that rely on each other in this really awesome ecosystem. So this habitat we have highlighted here. We have, for our education animals, we've replicated this habitat in this enclosure. So we have the sandy soil, we have the gopher tortoise burrows, and we have just planted a longleaf pine so that it can be represented here as part of this ecosystem. And Miss Tammy planted it, and as you can see, if we look back to where it's planted, it doesn't look like much right now. It kind of looks just like some grass popping up. But eventually, this will be a mighty tree, and it will be the center of this wonderful ecosystem, this dominant tree that creates this home to many different unique species of plants and animals. Thanks for joining us today.